How shall we start this?
Do we not start every podcast with like, hi, I'm Helen Tudor and this is the Ideal Client Attraction Podcast, or not? You can have that. Done. We're rocking and rolling. Let's go.
So, episode 6, boundaries, pricing, and saying no like a CEO. This is going to be meaty, I feel. And I feel there's going to be some people listening that are going to be like, oh, boundaries, like telling people no. Because for some reason, that is something that a lot of people in a lot of industries really struggle with. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that are recovering people pleasers.
Very much so. And I've got to put myself here. I think some people maybe look at me and think, well, you've got all your boundaries set up. You're good at saying no. You're not a people pleaser. But I think I still am at heart. But I have to put boundaries in place for me as much as for the people. Are
you implying that people on the internet might think you're a bit of a tough old northern battle axe?
I remember when I met Stu, and I'd known Stu for years and we were friends on Facebook. But when we actually got together, he said, oh, you're not like, I thought you were going to be this tough, entrepreneur woman. Well, I'm not, I'm just a normal, soft
dog and cat mum
person. Yeah, dog and cat mum. So I think when we do want to be in our feminine energy, as we say, but we also want all the success and we want to be in the doing and we want to be in the being, with this above and below the line. We want to be doing the strategy. We want to be having our souls support that and that spirituality support that. Sometimes it feels, for me anyway, as a woman in business, I'm flipping between the two. And I think what I've realised is that I don't need to flip between the two. They can just support each other. And you don't need to have one without the other. So you can have both. And I think part of that, being in that, almost that, it feels like a masculine energy of like, drawing boundaries and saying no and like, making sure that you get what you need rather than what everyone else needs. I think as a woman, as a mum, I think naturally I'm a giver. I want everyone to feel good. I want everyone to be safe and have a nice life and all the rest of it and everything to be good. And it's the same with my clients. I'm super emotionally attached to my business and to my clients. So it's quite difficult for me to separate and say, right, this is business. So therefore I'm going to put a hard line there. I'm going to say no there. I'm going to be in a position where I'm, this is not acceptable. But then at the same time, have all the love and the cherish and the support from my clients. So this is definitely something that I would say I'm much better at, but I'm still on that journey of, if that makes sense.
So a couple of things that spring to mind when you're saying that, and I'm going to give you 2 questions to answer before I forget one of them.
I was going to say, can I have them one at a time?
Okay, I'll try it. Okay. How does doing the ideal client attraction work and knowing your ideal client and having all that set up make having boundaries easier?
Oh, so much easier.
Okay, can you explain, extrapolate from that? What does that actually mean? Because I imagine if you're attracting the right people, then they're naturally going to be the boundaries. They're not going to be the kind of boundary pushers.
Yes, well, that's it really, yeah. If you think, so we did ideal client work way back in season 1, but obviously you can go back and listen to that. But when you really map out your ideal client avatar, and the thing with ideal client is it's not about them, it's about you. So it's about you knowing you're going to create this avatar that reflects back the dream person you would work with based on your values and what you will accept and what your boundaries are. It's almost like starting with the ideal client work almost puts boundaries in place naturally. So if you say, this is the dream person I want to work with, and this is why, and this is what they love about my products and service, and this is what they love about me as a person, you don't need boundaries. Right. So at the moment, I've got loads of lovely clients, but I've got one client in particular, and I think I might have talked about it before, but she is my ideal client avatar come to life. Yeah, she's just manifested into my house on a mastermind day, sat on my sofa. I was like, this is who I am. This is where I'm at, and this is where I want to go. And I was like, I nearly burst into tears. I was just like, what? I was like,
it works.
It works. Yeah. It really works. And she's the most lovely, beautiful, perfect person, right? She's great. And I've got a lot of love for her, and I presume she's got a lot of love for me, right? And she says things to me like, so I put out an offer recently. It was a $5,000 offer, straight into my DMs. I want it. I want it. Don't give it to anyone else. I want it. That's exactly what I need right now. But can I pay you now? Money to the usual place, because she's bought loads of stuff from me. And can we start later on? Can we start in April? And I was like, of course. But I remember sitting there thinking, oh, I put my offer out and you want it. And I'm so happy. And I saw her at an event and I was introduced Katie, my daughter, to her. I said, this is my lovely client. I won't name her because she'd probably be embarrassed. But anyway, this is my lovely client. And, she's sort of manifested into my life. And I was telling Katie about her. And she said to Katie, I'm so lucky to have found your mum. And I'm so lucky to be her one-to-one client. I just can't even, I just feel so happy and grateful.
And I imagine you feel likewise.
And likewise.
You're so lucky
that you get to... It's a love match. Right. It's like everything's like, ooh, all dreamy and amazing. And, I like cheese, you like cheese. Oh, we're best friends. And that to me, and that what I mean by that on the boundaries front is I say to her, you can message me between now and when we start, And I just know she won't.
Yeah.
Because she's put a boundary in place that I didn't need to enforce.
Yeah.
And I'm always encouraging her. I'm like, no, you can message me in between. And she's like, no, thanks, but we'll start when we start, and that's that. And I think boundaries quite often are a problem when you're not attracting ideal clients, and it feels like people are. There's a ladybird on my mic.
I didn't want to mention it because I didn't want to ruin the episode. I was thinking, just go.
Hello, mate. Come on, you can't sit on there. Be gentle with me.
Lucifer, the ladybird.
They're a sign of abundance.
Yes, they are. I believe so.
Also,
in the comments on whatever platform you're listening on, please give us what seeing a ladybird means.
It means abundance and fertility. I've got loads of them in this house.
Wow. Yeah, it's a good house.
Yeah, it's very good. But I think we can carry on without Mark, can we? I don't know. We should go rogue. We should start talking about anything we feel like.
Yeah, just talk about Mark.
Talk about Mark. Lovely Mark.
And during this advertisement break.
Yeah. This episode is...
Try Score app from Daniel Priestley. Increase your profits immeasurably. Anybody that buys from my link, helps out.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about John. So much more than the SEO guy. How can we put that in?
We did ramble while you were gone and misbehave, so you might need to...
Cut that out. Yeah, leave it in, yeah.
I'll cut the ramble out. Okay, we're back.
Okay, we are back.
Okay, post-Ladybird.
Post-Ladybird break. So I think when we do ideal client memories, so when I ask people to think about their best ever client and how good they made them feel, and I also get them to think about their worst ever client, and yours has just came to your mind, right? Because as soon as you say worst ever client, that person pops into your head and all the feelings come back. So it starts, flooding your body with all of those negative feelings again. And the reason why that person makes you feel so bad is because they will have pushed your boundaries about what you find acceptable in the way somebody speaks to you, the way somebody respects what you do, the way somebody values your work, the way someone respects your time, whatever it might be. But that worst ever client is the worst ever client because of a boundary disrespect at some point, almost across the board. So I think if we get the client attraction right, the boundaries are much less of a problem. And I think when I was talking before about I've evolved, maybe I've not evolved because I'm not sure how much we evolve, right? Maybe I've not massively evolved, but my client attraction has evolved. So therefore, the people I attract are beautiful, like that client who just want to, the feeling is mutual. They want to work with me just as much as I want to work with them. I said this on a post and it got loads of controversy because I said, if they're your ideal client, you don't need to overcome any objections. And all the salespeople were most upset with that. But it's like, you really don't. When I put my offer out for ideal client one-to-one, the people in my DMs were like, how do I get one of these things? And I was like, you send the money here, here's my bank details. And as soon as it lands, we'll get you booked in. And their next message was, sent the money, when can we get booked in? And then I said, so there's no overcoming objections with the dream clients. Now, I'm not saying you don't have to overcome objections in your business, because of course you do. When you're attracting people en masse and people who maybe just found you through an ad, then of course, you've got sales calls to do, you've got people to talk to, you've got to overcome their personal objections. But with the dream client for the dream offer, there's none of that.
I kind of see it and almost like a bullseye.
Yeah.
So there's a bullseye client. The ones that say
massive
this,
darts con, by the way.
and you literally go, this is what I do. This is what the offer is. And people will be like, I'm in. Because they're aware that's the right offer for them. And those people that it is the right offer for them, but they're not entirely sure, because they might lack the little, is this the right thing? Should I be doing this? We've spoken a lot on this season already about hiring, next hires, you know, and it could be that your offer's like, I'm going to help you find your first hire. And people are like, it is definitely the right person.
Yeah.
But like part of it is like, is it right? So like they'll have questions to confirm, you know, almost to make certain in their head, like, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm at. Am I? And you'd be like, yes, you very much are. You know, like you're absolutely perfect for this product. And it's interesting with the boundaries, when you get more confident, I think, and I never really realised I was putting boundaries in place. I was just more of like, I can't deal with this. This is like, I stopped. I very much tell everybody up front when they're working with me now, this is the thing. I'm not going to reply at weekends. I'm not going to do this. This is when it happens.
I think the time one's a big one, isn't it? That
this
people
is
struggle
like
with.
that. And before you, so I have the conversation about whether we can do the job. You know, whatever the job or the task is. Yes, we can do that. That's great. I like you. You like me. Here's how it'll work when we're working together. You know, like, does that work for you? Like, are you okay within these parameters? Like, I give people my WhatsApp number, but it's kind of like, it's still not just because I've read it that you're going to get a reply straight away in the right time. And I say, look, I will try and acknowledge you and say, look, I've read that. I will reply and tell you when I'm going to be able to get around to reply. But it's interesting that since I put those boundaries, expectations further forward, it was there. But the fear of losing a client, because they might fear that I wouldn't be happy to answer things at the weekend or to do things, you know, at the weekend, it's it was big. It was big, but actually everything's so much better when you just kind of say, you know, if you were a gym, you wouldn't like want people to think you're open 24 hours. And then once they've signed up, say, oh, actually, we're closed at the weekends.
I think clients, like as a client myself of many, many, many suppliers, I like to be given boundaries. I like to be told. Like I'm just an overgrown toddler. So it's like, I like to be told, like, this is how it's going to work. This is how it's going to work best. You know, you tell me how it's going to work best. If you're happy for me to, you know, do something that, you know, tell me, or you're not happy about something, then tell me. If I am overstepping boundaries, tell me. There's no point it all getting all resentful and weird. And then, you know, it all comes out in some I used to run an agency, and I always think like agency life is the hardest life to live. You know, it's not for the faint-hearted for sure, because quite often once you sign a client, it's just, you're just waiting for them to leave really, because that once people, you know, there's always another agency coming along and you're sort of managing these multiple relationships all the time. And I always used to think, because I had no boundaries in those days, and I just used to take any client for any job at any price, and I'd offer to do anything for them. I didn't even understand where my own boundaries lay. So I you know, they must have just been not had the best service, because I wasn't able to deliver something within defined lines. I thought what was better in those days, maybe just 20 years ago, I thought what was better is if I just did anything that they could potentially want me to do. But then they didn't really understand what they were getting. So therefore I wasn't understanding what I was delivering. And I think now I see this a lot when I get people to focus on selling like one thing to one person at a time and saying, this is the offers. These are my offers, maybe 1, 2, 3 offers, something you can pick up off the shelf. And there's real hard boundaries around it. What is it? What do you get? How much is it? You know, I think it's much more relaxing for the person delivering as well as the person receiving.
I totally agree. I think boundaries is one of those topics that when you scroll through social, it gets a bad rap and a great rap. And part of the reason it gets a bad rap is because, I don't know how you feel, I feel it can be an excuse for poor customer service and also rudeness, how some people do it. And the other thing I think, and I don't know how you find it, because I've never been a woman, not in this life, in anybody that believes in past lives, but I kind of feel that with this one, sometimes the femininity of people, the fact that they're a mum, or, you know, that caring natural side of you that you were talking about earlier in this episode, I kind of feel some people try and manipulate that. They try and play on that. Do you know what I mean? That, you know, they're like, oh, I thought you'd understand because you're a mum. I thought, you know, like, try and do that. And they try and bring that side out of you away from like the business side out. And it's already there because it's innate.
Yeah.
But how do you see kind of like with the negative? Have you seen the negative side of like what people perceive as boundaries and stuff, and do people try and
manipulate boundaries?
push
of course,
that?
yeah,
and I try and use a psychological thing on it.
Of course they do. People definitely do, because I think there's a famous sort of meme. I can't remember it word for word, but it's something about the only people that get upset about boundaries are the people that were pushing them in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, like, so it's almost like when you put a boundary in, I think business and personal, like you talked a bit in a previous episode about, you work from home so you can be in for the parcel, right?
Yeah.
That vibe, you know. Yeah. So I think there's boundaries to put in on a personal level as well that say, you know, I'm working, so I'm not going to do these things. Like I've struggled with that in the past. I've got a drop in house, you know, so there's always people coming and going. And I think having some personal boundaries are really important with your family and friends or whatever, and as well as in the business. And I think boundaries are there to protect you.
Yeah.
You know, they're there for you to decide. And I think you deciding on your own boundaries sometimes means you don't even need to enforce them, but you just need to know that they're there for you.
Absolutely.
You know, and be strict with yourself sometimes about, you know, scroll. I mean, I'm not strict with my own scrolling, so I don't know why I said that. But, you know, some people out there.
It's one you should have.
It's one I should have. You know, and for me, a recent one I've done is what I call sofa time. So I used to be feared to sit down in the day. I don't know. It's just a psychological thing. It was like, I'm all right to sit in the kitchen and eat my lunch and then go back to my office, but I can't just sit on the sofa in the day. And I think part of it, probably from my parents, like most things, but if I was lay on the sofa in a blanket watching telly in the afternoon, my mum would come in and be like, are you okay? Are you ill? Because I just don't do it, you know. Yeah. And I thought, why can't I lie on the sofa with my heated blanket and the dog in the afternoon? It just felt so wildly decadent. But now I have like blanket time in my diary, and it's the best bit of my day. It's in the middle of the afternoon, it's after my lunch, I have a full hour catching up on like Netflix. It just feels excitingly decadent, but since I've started doing that every day, my life just got exponentially better, and I think it must be because of that.
So forget all your flash Lambos, your 5-star spas,
the hustle and grind,
your designer handbags. The peak of decadence is an electric blanket, a dog, and Netflix in the afternoon just because you can.
It truly is.
Brilliant. Okay, so
honestly, it's been life-changing for me. I can't even explain. It's been life-changing.
Decadence is an electric blanket and Netflix.
But I used to be like, right, I've got to go for a walk, I've got to go get out in nature, I've got to go to the gym or whatever I've got to do. And I thought, what if I didn't have to do anything and I could just sit and do nothing for a bit? And it's
so when your business is 8 figures, are you hoping that means that you can double the amount of decadent dog and electric blanket time?
I think so, yeah.
Is that like?
I think so. But, you know, honestly, it's made me feel better. It's made me feel calmer. It's made me feel like everything I'm doing is paying off. You know, I talked about lifestyle by design. Yeah. It's a bit like that, really. It's kind of, I'm just so happy in my own space, with my own company, my own house, by myself, that I just feel like, who else would I want to hang out with for an hour but just me?
Well, to be fair, I think one of the top 3 people I'd hang out with is my dog.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you know what I mean? It's just like, I think Mark's probably the same. Maybe slightly more than 3 because he's got like multiple kids. But like, it's like, and I'm only saying 3 because they're probably going to listen, and so I can't just say it's the dog number 1 for certain. Yeah. But it is. I think the other thing with boundaries that I found, and as you say, what's interesting is when you have boundaries, they don't necessarily need to be spoken. But people like the fact, if you're saying like, this is me, this is what I'm going to do, like I'd really rather you didn't arrange something if Spurs are on the telly, because I'd quite like to watch it because I like to suffer. And like, or I really like to do that, or I go here a couple of times a week. It enables them to go, that's great, because I do this and I don't really want to lose that.
Yeah.
You know, like from a personal relationship. So like, hey, I'm glad you've said this.
I tell you,
because that's important to me. Now I know Stu is the future England manager, isn't he? Your husband.
I was just going to say, let me tell you about the king of boundaries, like my husband. Yeah, and he's so unapologetic, and I love that for him. You know, and sometimes it frustrates me because I'm like, but like we have our night out. It's a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday today. So tonight it will be out, just me and him. And there's a boundary. I'm obsessed with my blanket. There's a boundary around that on Tuesday nights. Tuesday nights are sacred, and that is it. But Monday's football training, Wednesday's football training, Thursday is squash, Saturday's football, Sunday is football. And that's his life, you know. And when I met him, he's like, this is my life. And that is it. And, you know, and he's really strong on that. And sometimes I try and push against it and I fight it and I sulk about it occasionally. But what it gives me is, well, I know I see my friends on a Thursday, you know, I do my work things on it, but, you know, so it's just allowed me to build a life that doesn't involve, you know, seeing what he's doing every night. So it's been really interesting for me. But he's just, the way he holds those boundaries so strong and so non-negotiable. And I think that's so powerful. And interestingly, my dad's the same. So my dad's amazing. He's a great, you know, he's got 5 girls, you know, he's a great dad, he's a great husband, you know, he's a great provider, he holds the family together. But he's played golf every Saturday my whole entire life.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's gone on the same fishing and golfing holiday my whole entire life. You know, and it does his same trip. You know, so he's like, I'm going to be great, but I'm also going to protect myself and what makes me happy as well.
I think younger me, this isn't just dyed for effect to make me look wiser. It's real age. I know, I do look younger, skincare. But I think younger me wouldn't have accepted that. Like, with people, I would have thought I need to give all of me. I wouldn't do it. And what that does is it ends up leading to a flattening of you. Do you know what I mean? If you're not doing those things, like the amount of times I used to play rugby really badly, but the amount of times
enthusiastically.
Enthusiastically. Well, if it was cold, probably not to. I was enthusiastic before I got there and I was on the pitch and I was like, why am I doing this? It's cold. I'm not even any good. But afterwards in the bar, the enthusiasm come back again. But the thing is, the amount of times that I would let other people's plans be like, oh, I really want to go there. Can we do that? I'd be like, all right, you know, because it wasn't. And you don't do those things that charge you up. Like, I've taken job promotions, which meant I had to stop doing martial arts. Again, it wasn't very good, but I enjoyed it. And I kind of allowed those things to kind of like, not unlike your dad, where it's like, this is what I'm doing. And I do think that boundaries in your personal life,
I think, are super important.
Charge your battery so you can give charge to everybody else. And you need to know, this is what I need to be me, to be the best version of me so that I can deliver for everybody else. And for some people, that's, I need to be able to go out of the house. I need to go and get drunk and have wine with my mates once a week after like yoga class, or I need this. My mum has always been a sewer and now she builds dolls' houses, but she needs that thing. Do you know what I mean? That do it. And it's funny when we talk about boundaries, people won't be like, oh, is that a boundary? Like you're saying like, I've got my thing and that's important to me and I need to do it.
Putting yourself first.
And I think in business, it's one of those things as well. And I think
as business owners, we've got to be really good on the personal boundaries as well, because otherwise it can just creep into every area of your life, you know. And I know I said earlier in another episode, I think early days when you sort of, you know, you really are grinding it out and you will have to lose some of maybe your personal time. But as soon as you can, I think letting those boundaries like creep back in and then holding firm on them, and just, this is that life by design though, isn't it? Of you can't let your business take over your whole life, because otherwise you'll just burn out and be extremely unhappy. I think
it's interesting as well, isn't it? By having the personal boundaries and the client boundaries, I think there's like, they do kind of merge in some ways, because it's kind of like, I keep saying it's kind of like, anyway, the way, if your partner or the people in your life don't want you taking work and business calls outside of work hours, then it's not rude to ask them not to be messaging you unurgent personal stuff during work hours. Not to say, can you do this? Can you just pop here?
Can you just is a bit of a red flag.
Because it's not big. Yeah. But if they don't want you checking your WhatsApp messages or talking to your team at 8 o'clock when you're trying to watch Netflix and they're trying to relax, then they can't expect you to have lost an hour in the day because you took the washing out and put it in tumble. And it's not a big thing. But it's just like, if you want me to respect home time and focus time with you, then what I need back is for you to respect work time for me. I'm awful at that because I'm a really lovely boss to myself, right? And if my girlfriend, she has a day of the week off, and if she's like, oh, do you want to go? I'm finished at the gym. Do you want to go for lunch? Or I'm just going to go there. Do you fancy it? I'm like, John, you've worked really hard. off you go. And it's like, I'll catch up another day. Do I catch up? Normally not. Normally not. But it's kind of like, it'd be really sensible for me to say, look, unless I've reached here, can you not invite me? Because I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, it's not fair. Yeah.
I've got no willpower. But it is one of those things, and I think it does do it. Now, how do we cope when someone pushes a boundary? And I imagine there's kind of like 3 stages to it, or like multiple levels of, first of all, just reminding them of the boundary. Or how do you deal with that when you have a client that is pushing those boundaries? What's the process that goes through Helen's brain?
Well, I'm very protected from boundary pushing clients because of my team.
Right.
So I think Jilly would answer this a lot better, if that makes sense. Because I think people who are in my group program, perhaps one thing that we sometimes see is they think that the team are there to speak to them privately, and that's not what they pay for and stuff. So I think how we deal with it as an organisation is, make sure the boundary's clear in the first place. This is what you're paying for and this is what you get. Excuse me. And then reminding of that boundary. People don't know a boundary exists if you don't tell them, and they might need a reminder.
Yeah.
And then, you can escalate from there. But we have had clients over the years, much more in the early days when I wasn't as good as Ideal Client, creation and attraction. Then, if someone came to us who was just horrible, we just get rid of them.
Yeah, I think
we've got quite a zero tolerance, for any kind of abuse, bitchiness, endless complaining. Anyone who's, I think the worst thing someone once said was, "We've all had a chat and we've decided, this is sort of thing is whatever it was a problem, or the way Helen was," and it's just like, I can't deal with that.
Absolutely.
Any kind of like toxic. The thing I'm most proud of in my group program is it's not cliquey, it's not bitchy. There's no like passive aggressiveness, So I think those are the things that we have pretty hard lines on in terms of boundaries in the group program. So I have got very low tolerance because the impact is very powerful. If you get a group, particularly women, but if you get a group, I've got 2,000 people in my paid program. If you get a sort of a cell of people who start to try and influence other people or just feel like something's not good, then that can be really toxic in an organisation, in a community. So we are pretty hot on that.
So clarity of what the boundaries are.
Yeah.
Very key thing. Like, here's how you work with me. Here's the rules in this program. Here's what you're getting. You're not getting Helen's one-to-one time. You're not going to get me just jumping on for a quick chat. Whatever the level of boundary those people are paid for, clarity up front.
Otherwise it's not fair. That's the other thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then reminder when they step in. Some people will be like, yeah, okay, fair play. That is, here's why. The one thing I would say is I've been upsold when I pushed a boundary because I needed more. Yeah. And they just come back and just said, they went, okay, we can't really do that here. Would you like a one-to-one call for this much money? Yeah, yeah. And I could go through that. And I went, do you know what? That'd be great, because otherwise I think once I've sorted that in my head, which I'm stuck on, I think I'll be fine with the rest of the group program. Yeah. And they were like, it's £100. Jump on a call with me. Let's see if we can sort it out. I'm certain we can. But the group program is general to your niche. This is a specific problem, so that's going to need me to look at. And they're like, send me over the stuff first. I was like, great. And because I wasn't sure, I was getting stuck in my own head and I wasn't moving on, and I was starting to get behind. And I think that's the other thing, like, if someone is pushing a boundary,
there's a reason.
Is there a product or a service where what they need from you is actually something you could sell them or help them with, or say, hey, yeah, this is too much for what you've bought or where you're at, but actually I can help you, but it's here. So don't think that that's always it, because they might be unhappy in that program because they might have just needed more than they're getting. They might have just needed more support than they thought they needed with a product or a service. Won't go into it in this episode because it's a whole episode on its own. But why do people, when they're unhappy in groups, feel the need to go and rally the troops like a pitchfork mob? Like every group I've ever been in, and like, I'm not sure if this is like Mark looking off camera there. Like,
I've seen
if
it
someone's happy,
they
won't. They won't just go, I think this is rubbish, or I think that's like. I think it, and all these other people. And often they won't be the one that will say it. They'll try and get other people
That's what I was
to
saying
go
about that situation. I was like,
and it is something you really need to protect. So I think like that being a boundary of like, we won't tolerate like pitchfork mobs. This is not mob rule. This is not democracy.
yeah.
Like this is how it is.
You've got to look at the group as well, like what's best for the group. And
Absolutely.
I think you've got different entities, haven't you? You've got what's best for the business, what's best for this program, what's best for this person, but also what's best for you as the business owner. So I think running things through that filter is really powerful when you're looking at boundaries and we talk about saying no like a CEO. And I think like sometimes you've got to make that executive decision and say, so occasionally, like over the years, maybe I have one person who's pushing boundaries a lot. I think I remember saying, this person's come up in the last 14 meetings. That's it. I'm done. I'm not talking about this anymore. We just go around in circles.
I would agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not worth my time, the team's time, the energy. And I always say we need to focus on the people who are loving the program, who want to really get the most out of the program. We can't please all the people all the time. So if somebody just isn't happy, let them go. And we always say, just cut them loose. Let them go with love. We're not going to chase you for the money. Just go and, with love and, love and light. This isn't the right thing for you. But I think sometimes we can get really caught up in trying to make people see that they're wrong and we're right, or that this program is great and you should love it. Sometimes it's just not the right fit, and that's it. And I think you've got to, as a CEO, you've got to know when to cut your losses and say, this isn't worth my time and energy, because it's taking up time I could be using to grow the business, to scale the business, to focus on the people who love me and love the business, and to, spend some time on the sofa with the dog. So like there are sometimes, if something's recurring, or some person is recurring, if it's a problem's recurring, then you're like, right, the business needs to look at this. This is now a business problem, not a person problem. Then what do we need to do to kind of move it forward?
I think what you said there was really powerful. So I've kind of got a rule that one of the questions I ask myself is, whose emails do I dread popping up in my inbox?
Yeah.
When I'm going to open my email,
whose name am I?
A couple of times a week, I'll be like, what emails do I not want in that inbox? Normally they're from Google saying they've changed something, to be fair. It is like, whose emails am I dreading? And right now I can happily say, hand on heart, I can open my inbox, and if there's an email from a client, oh, that's good. Not everything always goes perfectly with every client, but it's just like, there isn't that dread. That hasn't always been the case. And there's that whole, I want my product to be the best. I want my service to be the best. So when someone's unhappy, it does take a little bit of saying, well, no, it is on them.
Yeah.
Like actually,
sometimes it is them.
The fact that there's 1,950 people in a group of 2,000 that are fine and 50 not, percentage-wise, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a cost of business. That's what I would say. You can't.
So saying no like a CEO.
Yeah.
Can you expand on what that means? And then also, it sounds like, and we talked about machine in other episodes without going through it, but this boundary setting, and you said your team deal with it more. That must have been empowering for them when you said to them, no, here's the boundaries. If they're doing that, like a flow chart, here's what you do. Like, remind them, if they're still not happy, you can do that. You can refund them. This is the level of authority you need to do that.
Yeah.
That must be really nice in any company. When someone's getting abuse or customers aren't nice, you can turn around and go, look, if you're not happy,
that's it. Yeah.
just go. And they'll be like, I want to speak to the manager. Well, here you go. And if they speak to the manager goes, I've told the staff, you've been rude twice, to not go. And that was a big learning lesson. When I worked in the gym, my old boss, Jo, had someone in the office and she went, look, you've complained every month. Clearly we can't make you happy. I'm going to let you out your contract. And the guy was like, what? She was like,
oh, that's
well,
it.
Like, we can't make you happy. She went, I've got like 3,000 members that I'm trying to keep happy.
Yeah, that's exactly
without
that.
that.
Yeah.
She went, I'd love you to be happy here, but you're clearly not. This clearly isn't for you. You clearly want something we can't deliver, because otherwise you wouldn't be in here the whole time. And I was just like, wow. And it's a big learning
Powerful,
thing.
yeah.
One, and at the time the guy cancelled, then he come back and was just like, do you know what? I was expecting more than I was paying for.
Yeah.
And, can I rejoin? And it was just that powerful lesson. Do you know what I mean? Like, just say, there is that cut sometimes. So say no like a CEO, what would that sound like if you were saying no to me?
Like a CEO.
Yeah.
Well,
is it Alan Sugar, Donald Trump, like, you're fired? Like, dramatic.
Do you know what? I honestly don't ever do it. My team do it. I call Gillian the head of difficult conversations.
What a job title.
Well, her official title is Head of Happiness, but she's also had difficult conversations because I just...
Because it keeps you happy.
Yeah,
You're
it keeps me happy.
The head of
I was just thinking,
happiness.
when was the last time I said no? I mean, like, we've got to talk about pricing, right? So let's talk about the last time. Not said no, but I put a boundary in place. So I got asked a price for being a resident expert in someone's group. And I put a price in, which I thought was fair. And they came back and said it's way out of our budget. And I'm just like, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, so it sounds like me saying no like a CEO sounds like me not negotiating and not discussing and not debating. It sounds like it is a complete sentence. It's like, that's okay.
Absolutely. I want a Porsche. I can't afford a Porsche.
Yeah.
Like,
so that's okay.
That's okay.
But I think pricing's a really interesting one to dive into, really, because do you think the more you charge, the less your boundaries get pushed, or the better client you attract?
Yes. I would say, even when I was working in gyms, the more expensive gyms I worked at, the less people were moaning, which is amazing. I mean, although they did, I mean, to be fair, actually, by charging more at the more expensive gyms, it meant that we had the budget to solve a lot of the problems and to serve better.
Yeah, that's
so. I would also say that when you're pricing, price so you can serve at a level that you want to serve at. But yes, the more expensive clients, and I think it's normally because they're in a place in their business where it's there.
Yes.
And the other guide thing that I have noticed is we used to regularly charge $5,000 a month for SEO. Yeah. So we used to do that. That was quite a normal package, which is great when that's your normal package. There's a lot of work involved for that. But I tell you the best clients, it was when $5,000 was the lowest percentage of their income.
Yeah.
So when they had leads coming in from other sources, they were doing 50, 60, 100,000, 200,000 a month. When that $5,000 was a bigger percentage of their marketing budget.
Yes.
So it's the more that you are, I've found, the pressure they've put on you and your product on service can sometimes depend on, like, not just how much it is and what they've got. If you are running any kind of marketing or they're hiring you to do that, and you said to them, out of what you're spending on us, what else are you spending? So if that 5,000 client is going to spend 50,000 that year, I imagine the pressure on that £5,000 that they've paid you is a lot less than if that £5,000 is their £5,000. They've got to turn their business around.
Yeah, that's such a really important point, actually, which I wouldn't have said because I wouldn't have really thought like that, because it's so true. If you think about, like, is it a coincidence that my ideal clients have got better and better? Is it because I'm better at ideal client attraction, or is it because I charge more? You know, we're not sure. But I remember back in the day when I used to charge £1,000 for the group program, we used to have a lot more problems, a lot more complaints, a lot more. But is it because I didn't have the boundaries, or I didn't have the confidence? Is it because we were just attracting the wrong people? Because we were talking about, the messaging was more about I was broken, now I'm not. And now it's more about how to, you know, you're already doing okay, and it's about how to get to that next level and make it feel good. So there's a lot of variables, but I think fundamentally, yes, the more you charge, the more you can serve.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the easier, the more money you're making, the nicer person you are to be around. And the more money they're making, the nicer person. If 997, which was my old price, was there, so what we used to get a lot of was like, it's this or a holiday, you know, or it's this or I'm not going to be able to, you know, pay for things all year.
Which is a lot of pressure.
Which is a lot of pressure. Yeah. If 997 is the most they've ever spent on anything ever, and they're investing and they're only making £1,000 every 3 months, for example, then it's a massive amount of pressure on that investment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas when somebody's got, you know, and, you know, probably no coincidence, my dream client I talked about before, she had all the mortgages nearly paid off. She's got a great job. She's been earning a lot of money for a long time. She's got no children. She's got a different financial setup, and she's doing the business because she's passionate about it and she wants to make it work. It's not because she's not investing the money in me because if that's it, it'll, you know, she's investing the money in me because she wants the support and the experience and the, in her words, the hand holding, because she's doing something she's not done before. And that's a very different energy to this £1,000 is my last £1,000 in the world. And if it doesn't work, then that's it, I'm homeless. It's difficult to serve at that level.
As I said before, like I started in the internet really early. So like 99, 2000. And I was obviously 10. And one of the things that I was taught when I was selling directory space online was don't try and convince people to advertise that aren't advertising, convince them to move their budget.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier. And with that, it's far easier as a personal trainer to get clients paying you 2 times a week when 250 quid a month is nothing to them. You go and go to a wealthier area where the
they're paying $5,000 on a handbag.
Where the disposable income is that much bigger. It's that because it's not a big deal. Whereas actually the pressure on the personal training to work, if someone's paying 350 to 250 quid a month on personal training, it's the same money, you're delivering the same service, but it's a lot bigger decision for someone that earns $2,500 than someone that earns
it's a
10.
percentage.
And with business expenses, I think it's that. Also, what's interesting, the amount of times in this podcast you have praised your team. You got a head of Helen's happiness, difficult conversations.
That's also Stu's role, yeah.
That costs money.
Yeah.
Right? Which means that gets baked in. So it's kind of like by charging more, they get more support, they get more team. It's not just you being pulled in all directions. And so when you're looking at like boundaries and systems and the machine and everything we talk about, it all comes in together that actually the more you charge, the more you can deliver, the more boundaries you can be, and the more happier people are with those boundaries, and the more of you there are to do it. You've got a group of people to make every one of your clients happy.
Yeah.
And even the ones that don't touch the team per se, because you are serving them one-to-one. So if I paid to come and see you one-to-one, I might not necessarily really touch the team.
No.
But because you are available to just serve me, that value of what I'm paying you, part of it is because the team's dealing with everything else. So you get that focus.
That's really true, yeah.
So I do think like boundaries get easier. And I think you have to set boundaries based on realistic expectations for yourself and what your client are paying for with the value. Don't charge a fortune offering all kinds of like 24-hour WhatsApp access and all those kind of things if you're not going to stick to it. Be aware of it. And also be aware that sometimes if you want to stretch the boundary or your clients, you feel the ideal product is there, like, okay, what would that cost to deliver? And then get someone to do it. Because it could be that you could get someone that's in Australia that's up when you're awake, that can answer questions all night, that can jump in the group. Because if you want people to have an answer within 2 hours within your group, that's something you can pay for.
Yeah.
So you can decide when you're deciding the products and when you're pricing products, how to work those boundaries.
Yeah, I mean, that's really important actually when we talk about alignment with self, offer and client, which is like my thing.
Yeah.
It's like, there's boundaries at every step, isn't it? So who am I, what am I here to do, and what are the boundaries around that, and what does that look like? And then it's the offer, what's the offer, what am I selling, what are the boundaries, and the pricing obviously part of that. And also, do I want to deliver this offer in the boundaries that I put for myself, or can I deliver this offer in the boundaries I put for myself? And then the client is like, who will I and won't I accept and why? And really knowing that on the deep soul level of how important that is, so you don't make those mistakes. And when we talk about best client ever, worst client ever, the worst client ever, if you really unpick that and go back in time, there will have been red flags. There will have been boundary pushing probably really early on that you should have, or you could have, with hindsight, maybe seen that. But normally we just ignore the red flags because we want the money or we want the client.
Absolutely.
So I think it all fits in together. It all creates this real purpose for your business. When you're aligned with yourself, your offer and your client, and then you put boundaries around all of that, I think that allows you to operate in a way that feels good and looks good.
Absolutely. I think when you get to the stage of business you're at, there's a calmness and assuredness that makes it easier to say no, like a CEO, and to cut those clients, because there's not that desperate need to be grabby and take that bad decision to do it. I would say to anybody out there that's starting, you don't realise the negative impact and how much it will prevent you from where you're getting, and probably cost you money to take that money from that red flag client, to be willing to break the boundaries because you think, if I do this really well, it's there. And it's really easy to sit there going, because I've done it, it's easy for them because they've got a team, they've got loads of time. they can throw away a £5,000 client and they'll still be okay. I can't turn that 5,000 client down. I can't send that money back because actually I need it. But with the ideal client work, with just understanding how business works, if you are letting that run, you're probably going to make less than taking that money. And as you say, the red flags are always there. Every bad girlfriend, boyfriend, relationship, decision we've ever made, if you go back at it, you go, yeah, I probably could see that coming. And sometimes you do it. And if you're in business for any amount of time, any of our audience that have been in business for more than 3 years, more than a year probably, would probably go back and go, there were red flags and I walked straight into it like a ball because I thought I knew better and I thought this time it would be different and I could change it.
I've done it many times. This is coming from experience.
It's a business scar. It's like a business grading.
Yes, it's part of it. It's a rite of passage for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So be clear, remind, and don't grab the money if you know they're going to do it because actually it will do more harm and cost you more money in the long run.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I think that's wrapped that up nicely.
Love it. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Helen.
'Cause these are the best